Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Monday, April 4th, 2016 at 16:20 Eastern Time. It's been a moderately interesting 36 hour. The last 36 hours have been moderately interesting to say the least. Started off yesterday morning. Went to church, and as I said earlier, they were going to actually do a wedding and actually have an actual wedding during the service, which has happened. I think it happened 2 years before I started going to St. Peter's. So that was I think the last one they did there during a church service was in 1993. But anyway, this couple that's been going to the church several months now. As I said, the woman's there, the Kristen's there pretty much every week. William, I think sometimes he can't make it because of his work, but he has said repeatedly, "I really, really love this church." Oh, good, good. So do the people who go there, really. So they got married there during the service, and I was scheduled to be one of the lay readers, but as often happens during weddings and funerals, if you're scheduled to be, you rarely have a funeral scheduled during a church service. Oh, I suppose you could. Beginnings and endings and all that kind of thing. Of course, I went in there. I mean, I had the readings. I had everything I go loaded for bear all the time because you never know what curveball is going to come at you. And Reverend Highland says, the kids were doing the readings, and I said, good. And that is good. And so then we went to, there's a special section of prayers in the middle of the service that after the sermon, and he said, the other fellow reading with me, he was going to lead the psalm because usually they sing the psalm, but for some reason there was some reason they couldn't sing the psalm because I don't know, there's some technical organ problem or something. I don't know. Anyway, it was spoken. It was a spoken song, and we led that. And then the kids did the readings before and after. Of course, the gospel, and then did the prayers. And I did that. Read those, and that went okay. I couldn't, it's one of these sort of blendedy family-y things. I guess these folks have been together for quite some time. She has two of hers and he has four of his, I think. Something along that line. Let's see, I assume he had his son as his best man, who was probably maybe just about 14. And he was one of the readers. He had some trouble reading. He read the Corinthians, but he had, either a sister or a stepsister, sort of standing beside him, when he hit words that he didn't know. And I got to think to myself, is this the first time this guy's read through this? Is this his first encounter with this text? It was the Corinthians 13, 1 to 13, about love, faith, hope, and charity. But in most, the real translation of charity is actually love. Uh, for the Greek word. Odd that it got sort of consistently mistranslated that way. It kind of reads better with charity. I mean, it's just from the faith, hope, and charity. There's really not that much of a difference in terms of how it sounds, I guess. Depends on how you grew up, what you're used to hearing. In any case, this guy was clearly just having a really good time. He just kept smiling and was so happy the whole time. It was fun to watch him. So good. The kids did the readings. The NIV version. Yeah, that's why I said fine, great. That relieves me from sort of having to pull a preemptive strike by reading the NRSV. So issue avoided. Good. Now, the guy I read with, God bless him. I had a little bit of a stroke here back in 2011. But this guy had a fairly, we'll call this a mid-sized stroke here back in probably 2009. Well, maybe 2010. Hard to, but it's been a while. But he recovered very rapidly and almost full. But he has to make a deliberate effort when he articulates. I actually think it's made him a better reader than he was before, because it's slowed him down. He takes it more seriously now, I think. But he didn't get his album. His albums, he just sort of like hanging open, and sort of like hanging open like this. Look. And I thought, should I say something to the guy? You don't want to embarrass a guy. On the other hand, you don't necessarily want somebody standing up, particularly at somebody's wedding, So I just sort of hung open I got the rest of the service. And then at the under the general topic of adventures with the communion rail, we had a lot of these little tiny little kids. By little kids, I mean we're talking maybe, 4 to just above 2.5. Where they're sentient enough to sort of know what they're doing, and when the kids get a piece of bread to dip into the wine, if that's what they do, rather than drink the wine, the kids tend to plunge their whole hand down into the wine, And even if they don't do that, they tend to drop the bread. Well, we had 3 kids. We had 4 pieces of dropped bread into the goblet. 2 of those pieces were dropped by the same kid after he got his second bite of the apple, so to speak, after he was given a second piece. When he did it a second time, his dad reached in to try to fish it out, and he couldn't fish it out. So it took a while to sort of get those people clear. So it took a while to get that group kind of cleared off the communion rail. Otherwise, what it went fine. The bulk of actually more than the last 36 hours has been taken up with emails from a fellow. He's a YouTuber in Cornwall, And we've been going back and forth. He's got a lot of specific questions about things, and I've been doing my best to answer them. And hope it helps. Can't really be more specific than that out of a sense of discretion. And then Tony Pincham and I did our usual, not usual, but our Sunday night Skype, which was always fun. Before we'd Skyped, I had watched his recent video where he'd gotten these two books I sent him, the Geneva Bible and the Tyndale New Testament. And he was visibly moved by getting these things. And, I was visibly moved to watch him be visibly moved. So I'm very glad he appreciated. I mean, obviously he'd appreciate him. I knew that, but he was very moved by these things, and to me, well, the Tyndale New Testament for me was almost life changing to encounter that. I encourage you all to look at that. If nothing else, read the biography by David Daniel. That's Daniel, 2 L's. It's, he's William Tyndale's a real saint. He's a true saint. Like all saints, he was a sinner, but the true saint in terms of his service to the English Bible. So now we get to the day's adventures, which basically revolved around two events. One, some sort of crazy woman over in Liz and Henry's yard or driveway. Well, in their yard too. This one was roaming around over there, and I called AT&T and told them about the phone line being ripped down, and they said, "We'll have somebody out here today." And I said, "Go fine." Relatively painless phone call to AT&T, by the usual past standards. Let's put it this way. I will say the last 2 or 3 encounters I've had with AT&T have been fairly reasonable. So this guy shows up, and of course, when he got his ladder off the truck, he broke off part of a limb on my pine tree. I sort of thought, should I say anything? Should I say? I said, look, I don't want to be an asshole. I said, but I planted these things 33 years ago, and they've been beaten the hell out of them during all this. I said, I'd appreciate you if you don't break off any more of this tree, when you just don't break off any more of this tree. Because he didn't have to. That's where he parked his truck. He'd backed it up, against the pine tree and dragged the ladder out, and it has to swing down, and it broke off a limb. I was not happy. But, as the afternoon waxed on, he sort of got to know me a little bit better. He became clearly resigned to the task at hand. And he said, well, and I certainly agree with him. He said, I can't really do this on a ladder. It's just too dangerous and unstable. And I said, obviously. So we got a guy in with a bucket truck, and the guy with the bucket truck had been out here before. He's the guy that fixed the phone line after it had been cut down or knocked down by the first tree guys who were out here in August of last year. And he says to me when he drives up, he says, and I said, I thought you'd been out here before. He said, when he drove up, he said, I can see things a lot better now because when he was out, there were still some trees left, and he ran an entire new line. Then, well, his new line received its first splice today. And they were debating whether to move the line from, to the new pole or to the pole that in theory is going to be taken down. But this guy said, Eric of the bucket truck said, he says, there's no way they're going to tear down, they're going to remove that electric pole. He says they don't, it's just, first of all, they don't need to. Second of all, looking at the way they've got their line, their pigtails, extended pigtails out, taped down as reserve on the lines. He says, they're just going to swing those things up. He said they've got an anchor driven in here that they can use for either one if they have to. They said they're not going to move that pole. They're going to take that pole. They're going to move all that stuff and dig up your service line and things. He's not going to do that. Well, that was his opinion. Well, any sensible person would think that when you have a set of designs to follow, some of the plans, who knows what's going to happen. And now we get to the best story of all. Those of you who have stuck with me thus far, you get the cookie at the end of the string on Easter Sunday morning. That was what we did in my house. My parents ran strings down out of, each bedroom, and my sister and I each had a string to follow, and there were little things along the string that, fine. Easter was a very much bigger deal than Christmas in my house. Which is great. Great fun. So, I was basically down there with this phone people from about 1:30 on to maybe 3:45, 3:35, something like that. And I saw a car over in Liz's driveway. It's one of those sort of Gennaro, roundy. You can't tell what they are from afar. They all look the same to me. And a lot of times Henry will, Henry's car will be gone, but one of Henry's circulators, when he's doing petitions to get on the ballot, they'll park their car in the driveway, and then he and Henry will go to the circulator, regardless of he or she or what, and will drive up to wherever they go and circulate petitions for these alcohol issues. Get on the ballot so they can, somebody can sell alcohol in their store. And I didn't see anybody over there. Now, Paul was down there intermittently with me, and he was able to sort of spend more time eyeballing him when he was down there than I was, because I was, watching the phone guy, and talking with them, and then but initially early on in this whole little saga, I was down there alone, and and this woman's over there, and I thought, oh, that's Liz. And then she waved, She waves. And now I waved back. I said, hi, Liz. And I thought, that doesn't really look like Liz, though. But I said, hi. And she kept doing that. And then she kept doing this in a way that's made me think, there's something not right with this particular individual over there at the end of the driveway. Or down in the driveway. It wasn't quite at the end. It wasn't quite at the end yet. And plus she sort of changed. She was slightly bigger than Liz, and maybe just a hair taller. And so that woman sort of wanders down to the end of the drive, and she sort of looks this way and that way on the highway, and then she sort of goes back. Then she sort of goes in her car, Interestingly, every time she got in her car, her backup lights came on, which meant that she put the car in gear. She's sitting in there with her foot on the brake. And, thank God she'd get out. She can't. So then she comes over across the road. And I go up to meet her. Halfway up to meet her, sort of like halfway. I don't want this strange ranger coming onto my place, And she says, let's see, how'd she put this? I'm stuck. Can you help me move my car? And I said, well, what's wrong? I said, are you stuck in the mud? I mean, are your tires spinning? Or I put the car in gear and press on the pedal and nothing happens. I said, don't the tires spin? No, nothing happens. I said, does the engine run? Yes, engine run. So I'm out of my area of expertise on this one, ma'am. I said, I'm more than willing to call you a tow truck. I can put a cable on and just sort of pull it back up on the asphalt, and then you can be on your way. No. Just do not call anyone. Do not call anyone at all, ever. I said, the people who live there will be home here presently. I said, you won't have too much long to wait. I mean, they can figure out, how to help you, I said, you have a cell phone. I'll give you the number of the towing company if you want to call them. Or says, I will call my brother. He will come. And I said, oh, well, then fine. Your brother, you might bring some couple of friends and you can shove the car and get it going. So then she goes back across the road. Thank God. She was not right. Leaving aside the fact that she was clearly, from not of the U.S., sort of her insistence, her assistant sort of, okay, fine. So she goes back. Well, then she starts wandering around. Now, Paul told me this afterwards, but I saw her go up to the house, and I thought, oh, she's, because I said I already told her nobody's home. And then apparently Paul, while I was talking to the phone guys, Paul saw her wandering all around the house and looking in the windows and stuff like that. So by the time I got done talking with these guys for a while, I look over, she's still there, and I thought, well, there's just something not right about her. So I called the sheriff, and I reported, not 911, sort of like the 311, you call and you report, oddball shit. We don't have 311 in Delaware, but I have the, you call the desk, the report desk for the sheriff, and you tell them what's going on, and they'll send somebody out. Well, it was a shift change time, so instead of coming within about 7 minutes, I called them at 2:17. They didn't get here till 2:52. But meanwhile, in the meantime, this woman kept at it. She eventually came over again. And she said, oh, you must come. I said, I can't do anything for you. I said, I assure you within a few minutes, somebody's going to be here to help you or deal with you or deal with the problem, deal with this problem. Didn't say deal with you, deal with the problem. Who? And I said, I called the sheriff. She said, the sheriff. And it seemed as if she had never heard the term sheriff before, which I got thinking about afterwards. I don't know, maybe in the Caribbean islands they don't have the term sheriff. Well, in due course, a sheriff arrived, and then about 6 minutes later, another sheriff arrived. And I guess Paul saw the first sheriff shove the car out of the mud or move it back or something, you know. I was, you know, intermittently diverting my attention. And, okay, so then they leave. You know, they get her up. She's squared away. She's oriented. Go down the driveway. They leave. These guys leave. And she sat there 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 and she sat there. She got out. She looked around. She sat there and she sat there and she sat there. And then finally she starts to move down the driveway. At the time she starts to move down, just at the time she starts to move down the driveway, Henry shows up. He comes home. And so Henry talks with her. Okay. Well, then she eventually goes out, turns west, and goes down Worthington Road. So then Henry, then when the phone line guys leave there shortly thereafter, I go in and Henry calls. I knew he would. I was going to call him if he didn't call. And he says, we basically got, I told him what happened. He told me, what he said she didn't have any rear license plate on that car. And I said, I wonder if the sheriff's dinged her for that. And he says, so about 15 minutes after she left, and this was when we'd gone inside, I didn't see this happen. He says, she came back. She came back and she knocked on the door, went to the house and knocked on the door, and he says to Henry, she says, my uncle is coming for me. My uncle is coming. She had told me she had called her brother. See? And she tells Henry, she calls, my uncle, I'm coming. My uncle is coming. My uncle is coming. And Henry said, well, that's fine. I said, but you can't wait here. You've got to go somewhere else and wait. And he says, you got to get out of here and go somewhere else and wait. You can't wait here for your uncle. And so she did go then. So clearly I will say that, now Paul saw this and I didn't see it. Paul said that the sheriffs walked all the way around the house and checked things while they were there. This is the time of year you start getting kind of strange shit happening around here. You get these kind of gypsy roamers and people casing the joints and things. And particularly in a construction area, there are a lot of houses that people think, oh, they're going to be empty and we can go, do this and do that and so forth. And I've had any number of people tell me that they're surprised to find somebody still living, here in my house where I'm living right now. They think it's empty. Well, on that note, fun and frolics here on the Island of Peace. So I'll say bye-bye, YouTubers.